welcome everyone. I've got just a couple of housekeeping things. As you know, Jeffrey is on vacation. He will resume again on August 2nd. And the 5 Sundays in August will be led, I hope, by members of the laity with their own passion, their own choice, whatever drives them and however spirit moves them. We're going to start a book reads on Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy. It's a fascinating book, and some of you may have seen the movie. I would suggest it's a book for our time right now, and please consider joining that participation. And with that, I'd invite you all to get comfortable and close your eyes. We'll do a brief meditation and then I'll turn it over to Jeff. Take a few deep centering breaths. Get your body comfortable and focus on your breath. As you focus on your breath, think of a beam of sparkling light above your head that is shining down into the top of your head. On the inhale, bring that light through the top of your head, and on the exhale, spread that light throughout your body. Inhaling, bringing the light in, exhaling, spreading the light throughout your body. And feel how the different parts of your body respond to that light. There may be a tingling, a sense of warmth, a feeling of calm, a feeling of brightness. Continue to inhale and exhale, spreading the light throughout your body. Inhale and spreading the light throughout your body. And as you do this, continue and give gratitude to the light for coming in and being part of you. Give gratitude to your body for accepting the light, and give gratitude for everyone in this program for sharing that same light with you and joining that light in the oneness of this conversation that is about to commence. Bathe in that gratitude that we're all sharing. And when you're ready, come back. Good morning. And with that, I give you Jeff Braun.
Thank you very much, JS. I don't think I felt that relaxed all week, so I'm even more grateful for being here this morning. And it's amazing how fast our bodies can change biochemically and our spirits can shift into a very dramatically different mode. As relaxed as we might have been, I think we're all far more relaxed and centered now, more open. And so thank you, JS. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting. Wishing happy vacation and restful time away to Jeffrey, who's with us in the spirit. And it's just such a pleasure to be with you this morning. I know we have until 8:50 or thereabouts. If you all want to shave 2 minutes after that, what have you, that's fine. But I know we want to finish so people can be ready to watch worship if that's their wish, and just be respectful of time. I want us to, this morning, we're going to be focusing on Psalm 13, the New Revised Standard Version translation as chosen by Jeffrey. It, of course, is the text for the sermon this morning, and we're very excited to hear what Jeffrey feels the Spirit was saying through him in his sermon and in the service as a whole. So I thought we'd start just to give you an overview of our time together by reading the text. And in a moment, we'll have JS cue that up in a screen share, and all props to JS for beautifying the text and overlaying it over a beautiful sunrise over Lake Michigan, which is certainly a turning point in every day as night turns to day. And I wanted to talk to you in a fluid but kind of structured way about the text, what's going on in the text, what you think the themes are. Allow that to be entree into reflecting on times in our lives personally where the themes and the dynamics of the text may be playing out. Maybe this was our prayer, this was our supplication. And then turn, as we have time toward the end, to talk about how we perhaps see this psalm of supplication speaking to what's happening in the world, or how we might hear people in the world around us offering this kind of psalm, asking the question, of course, how long, O Lord? So with that, JS, if you could cue up the reading, that would be great. And then during the course of our conversation, just another comment, and Jeffrey shares this, I'm sure, but we want to hear from everybody that would like to share. And knowing we have short time, I may jump in at some point if we've already gotten a few great thoughts on the bulletin board, so to speak, and ask us to just hold the thought and move to someone else. It's not to interject or interrupt, just to keep things flowing, to make sure we use our time as wisely as we can. So here is the beautiful text. Thank you, JS. Is there someone that would like to read our text this morning as we all follow along and just allow this text to sort of enter into us, and listening for themes, listening for key points or even turning points in the text? There's someone who might like to read our text this morning.
Just speak up since we can't see everybody's hands raised.
Okay.
I'll read.
All right. Thank you,
Okay,
Flurry.
Flurry.
How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear pain in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all day long? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep the sleep of death. And my enemy will say, I have prevailed. My foes will rejoice because I am shaken. But I trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Flurry. So just letting you all have just a moment to sit with the text and maybe scan back over it just briefly before JS takes it off the screen. Or if you prefer, we can leave it on the screen. I think it might be easier to take it off so we have a better view of one another. But just invite you to scan over the text again just for another moment and just see what continues to stir in you. This is sort of a private version of Lectio Divina without going through the full reading again. Okay. JS, if you can return us to full gallery view, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again for the beautification of the text. Already a beautiful text. So I wanted to, again, have us kind of talk in three waves about the text itself, which grounds us and informs us and inspires us, and perhaps touches us in some way, to talk about how it has perhaps applied to your life, been reflective of words you have lifted or felt in your heart, and then talk about how it might be also relating to what's happening in the world around us, or be the kind of wording that is being shared from the heart by those around us. So what's going on in this text? It's short, but incredibly dense, very evocative. What is going on here as we engage it, as we've just heard it so beautifully read. Thank you, Fleury. Thematically, structurally, poetically, what's happening in this beautiful psalm? And feel free to just kind of, you know, raise your hand, or I can't see everybody. So if you can't raise your hand, then just Andrew, Judy, and I think it's Elaine, just kind of, you know, jump in and we'll try and make sure. But I saw someone's hand raised. Was that Junior? You go ahead. Yeah, please.
The speaker, the writer of this seems to be in deep depression.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not going well. And he's asking the Lord to be with him or her.
Mm-hmm.
And hoping for that protection and love that the person needs at this time.
Yes.
And at the end, I think would have what I call an attitude of gratitude
Mm-hmm.
for that and for the goodness of life.
Mm-hmm. Junior, do you get the sense, or anyone, do you get the sense that this is a short-lived or recently erupted challenge, or is this one of a more enduring nature?
Well, I don't know the history of this, so I don't know if it's something that this person has had for a long time. But it seems like an appeal, almost a last-ditch appeal for assistance and help and love and courage.
Is there anything about the language, just to ask one follow-up question, in the language itself that might speak to the duration of this struggle?
Well, at the beginning, he says, "Will you forget me forever?" That's a long time.
Yes. So I know Greg and Paul. So Greg, we'll start with you, and then Paul will go to you.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. Good question. If this hasn't been going on for a long, long time, then I think this is just the most impatient writer of any psalm ever, because it sounds like this is a person who's been in a 30 years war, or has been sick and worried about him or herself, you know, dying pretty soon, or just on a long journey in the desert, let's say, for a long time, lost from their family. This is a long time coming.
Yep.
And he hopes that a change is going to come.
Yep. And I think it is fair to say that things can strike us quickly, and then we can, if they strike us deeply, have this same kind of strong language. But there's something just about the way this text, I think, when we read it, strikes us, that suggests that evokes a person, a spirit that has been worn almost like a rock by water over a very prolonged time, and who is suffering and speaking from that enduring challenge from within the heart of that, who's been bearing this weight for a while. Paul, what were you going to add?
I was just going to note that the words "how long" are repeated 4 different times.
Yes.
So, you know, you can just see, we probably all have been there. Is this ever going to end?
Mm-hmm.
How long do I have to put up with this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely whatever is afflicting him, and it may be multiple things, but it's, I would say, very long duration, and he's almost at his wit's end.
Mm-hmm.
Really, God. So yeah, it's he's in a tough spot.
Yes, please.
Or she, excuse me.
Yep, very fair. Thank you. Thank you very much.
These 6 short verses speak to a period of my life that lasted longer than a decade.
Hmm.
I made a choice to really revisit my faith, and no matter what, that I was going to be more active in exploring my faith and avowing my faith wherever that took me. And it took me to hell. I went through a period of more than a decade of anger, frustration, resentment, you name the emotion that can bring you down and wear you down. I was in that space for 10, 12 years. And I pleaded with God on more than one occasion, what's going on? Why is this happening? And then I popped out the other end and I see it all. I see what I went through. And I have nothing but gratitude for the space that I now get to occupy. And so I sort of live in that verses 5 and 6 now. The bountifully, that is the last word in that psalm. I live a spiritually bountiful life now. And I can't explain what happened and how it happened. But that's where I am now, but I spent 10 years sort of in those first 4 verses. But my trust in God never wavered. And that there is an answer.
Was that anger, just to ask one very pointed follow-up, was that anger you said anger, resentment, frustration, just such acrid, strong emotions. Was that anger directed at God? And if so, it must have been a very tensive...
It wasn't directed at anyone or anything. It just was.
Yeah.
It's like, I have hazel eyes. I'm left-handed. I'm angry. It was as much a part of my totality of my being as the color of my eyes and hair.
But there was some turning point or eventual shift, gradual, undetected when it happened, unexplainable even now, a shift from those prior verses, if you would, to the attitude of gratitude.
And I look back on all the things that I was angry about, which was everything. And I see what it was, where the anger came from, where the resentment came from, where the sense of being a victim came from. I see that all very clearly now. And I have nothing but gratitude, because the grace of God allowed me to move out of that space.
So Paul, and then we're gonna go down to Andrew. Thank you, JS.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that the author first complains and laments about what a tough time he has, but then what does he do? He turns to prayer. The next 2 verses are, please God, help me here, speak to me. So he or she has some faith that has never gone away, and seeks God's help. And then in the last 2 verses, he's rejoicing of what God has been able to do for him. So it's almost like, okay, here's how you deal with life. Yeah, we all got troubles, but have some faith, pray to God, and then rejoice in the good things that happen to you. It's a interesting 6 verses where you kind of put it all together in a very succinct fashion.
Yeah, there's a very heuristic quality to this psalm in terms of what it encompasses and what it distills without dumbing any of it down, giving any of it short shrift. And I just want to lift up one very strong not analogy, but parallel. So when you think about Christ on the cross, you know, my God, why have you forsaken me? Not forgotten, intentionally abandoned, forsaken, done something that would seemingly be not in the interest of the person who is being forsaken. And many would say that's a moment where Christ's own faith breaks. And this is where I think other scholars, and this is my interpretation, faith and belief almost are dissected. They're bifurcated at that moment. Belief is not what I hold in my heart and I trust in. Belief is what I hold in my heart and what I trust in, but that's not the same as faith. Here, the belief was stripped away from Christ, stripped away from the psalmist as he or she was speaking this. And it's just pure faith that's left. What's faith when there's no belief? It's the willingness to continue to engage with the Creator, despite the fact you believe there is no presence or willingness to save you and come to your aid by that Creator. So faith and belief can intensively come apart, and all you have left is faith, which is an exertion of a willingness to connect. And some would say this turning point in the psalm at the end is actually not because all has now become well, but because there's been some shift in spirit within the psalmist that allows the psalmist to feel now connected to God again and to believe, not just faith, now belief comes back, and to actually be feeling the way that the psalmist would feel once all the struggles have been resolved, even before they've been resolved. So whether it's because they were resolved and it's gratitude for that, or it's gratitude of knowing, I know eventually they will be and I'm in your hands, this is a turning point in the text, a powerful poetic turning point. And one author named Robert Alter, who wrote a beautiful book about the Psalms, said this may even be a turning point in the very genre of supplication psalms, because there is such a shift within the span of so few lines from profound struggle and absence of belief to an imbuing of profound gratitude that comes from belief. So it's very, very, very powerful, as you said, succinct summation of human struggle and life and divine and human relationship. Who else would like to speak to how this, perhaps Marcy, has addressed, relates to your life or what you see happening in the text?
I took it presently, COVID-19, the president, and all the racial problems. And then personally, I've worked for 40, 50 years on reproductive rights, and those are gone. However, again, we go back to at the end our faith. But we need the strong faith in order to survive what's happening in our own world as well as the larger world now. It seemed to me a very appropriate psalm for us to study, think about, and hear about.
Yes, and that very plaguing question of how can I hold on to faith, the commitment to be connected when belief in the system, belief in justice, belief in our ability to make change, maybe even belief in God has perhaps frayed or fractured. So it's very poignant. Andrew, I apologize. I said I was going to come to you next, and I jumped past you. My apologies.
That's all right. That's all right. I was thinking,
Mark.
seem to relate it to today Christianity. We seem to be seeking signs to prove that God is with us anytime we go into any situation. But we have to hold on to our faith and know it's a sustenance spirit. He's holding on to us and he's with us. And he takes us through that. Anytime we go through something, there's a lesson for us to learn within that time period and know that he's always with us and he's promised he's never going to leave or forsake us. And it's also promised that he's not going to make anything more than us come onto us. Mm-hmm. So just as humans, we might seem to, because we are going through the thing at that time, we see God so far away from us. But what we fail to know that he's with us through it all.
And you see that reflected in suggested ways, direct ways, or in outright ways in those first several lines. How long will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Which at least is an emotional, if not a physical distance, the sense of just being utterly on one's own, or God unwilling to unveil God's self to the psalmist. We do look for signs. There's so many times in a memorial service planning process where someone has said, I'm just looking for that sign. I'm looking for that sign of connection, and we yearn for those signs. Others that might like to share again how this text, Fleury, please, and then we'll come to Andrea.
I have a different Bible here. It's the New Oxford Annotated Bible, and it says that
Good Bible.
One.
Mine's not looking so good, but at any rate.
it says that the third verse, enlightening the eyes, is a metaphor for vitality and joy.
Mm.
And then the last two, the comment is, the lament ends with expressions of trust
Yes.
and thanksgiving, which offer God a reason to heed the complaint. So I thought that was a little bit different than just when I read the psalm.
Yes.
That I put a little different spin on it for me.
It's so, thank you for bringing that up, Fleury, because I don't think it speaks necessarily to, or goes all the way to conditionality. I will not unless you. I don't know that it's that way, but it does strongly suggest, without saying there's a conditional quality to God's unconditional love, that the love is unconditional in terms of its presence, its flow, its purpose. It's ever, ever, ever pouring down upon us, and what allows it to permeate or to well up from within us, from that inner sanctum that is the sacred seat within each of us. The key to that lies in our hands. And gratitude, that attitude of gratitude that several of us have mentioned, really is the key that can unlock the ultimate or greater fruits and harvest of the blessing that's already there. And that's a very powerful thing, to think that God has placed the key to the city on the hill, if you would, and the city to the inner sanctum in our hands. And gratitude can open those gates or close those gates. And it's just a powerful, nuanced but important piece that you've helped to also bring further to light. So thank you for that. Andrea, thank you, Fleury, very much.
I don't have the text right in front of me, but I think I heard in it, and in relation to some of the struggles I've had, is kind of acceptance. So in my personal experience, if I see a challenge, and I've had some challenges in my extended family, if I do everything that I feel I possibly can and make my contribution, things don't fall always where I would hope they would fall.
Yes.
But I've come to kind of have an acceptance and also a faith that, you know, I've done my best, and now I have a faith in a broader world and a broader something much bigger than myself. And what happens, happens. Yeah. And I have to accept it. I haven't always, every once in a while, I step into the gratitude pool, not consistently, but there's something to accepting it. And I haven't gotten to the point of joy and all of this, because I feel more of a weariness still, but I'm kind of making that movement to more gratitude. And I don't think I'll ever be a joy person, but but I'm generally I'm accepting.
Yes, and that speaks so strongly to the way in which, or the words of, you know, come to me, all you that are, burdened and heavy laden, and take my yoke, and my yoke is light and my burden is easy. Like that, the yoke doesn't go away, the burden doesn't go away, but it becomes lighter because there's a sense of Christ God under it with us. But also it's lightened because we aren't engaging it the same way. And maybe the turning point for you here was acceptance. It doesn't go all the way to gratitude or joy, but there's an acceptance of, I've done what I can. I lay this at your feet, God.
That's
And with
right.
that, some of the weight, not the full weight, comes off, and you are lighter within what is still dark or heavy. And so
That's
there's a
right. And it felt like a burden off my shoulder
Yes.
once certain milestones were made.
Yes.
And it was a great feeling.
Yes, and it's so subtle in its occurrence, and yet it's absolutely unmistakable once it's already happened. You may not be able to point to the moment, but you know it has happened. And I think the psalmist may be the same. Junia, you wanted to chime in.
I just heard a TED talk on gratitude yesterday on WBEZ, and it was remarkable. And talked about how scientific research has shown that if you have the attitude of gratitude, you are healthier.
Yes.
You can deal with problems much better. And it was wonderful. And the person who did it said he was decided he would be grateful for the cup of coffee he had.
Yes.
And then he talked about all the people who produced the coffee and drove the truck to bring the coffee and grew the coffee and painted the paved the streets that the truck could go on. I mean, it went on and on and on. But if you think about, and then it brought us really everybody together
Yes.
in one wonderful way.
That's a beautiful way that human chain gratitude we can think is our own attitude within ourselves, but it can actually reaffirm and in fact almost make again this beautiful human chain and fabric around
Right.
us.
Yeah.
So, Fleury, yes, please.
I think with this COVID pandemic, it should be much more obvious to all of us how connected we are. The farmers, the pickers, the truck drivers, the grocery store people who work at 2 a.m. putting it on the shelves so that we can go load up so we don't have to go for a month. And it's, we couldn't do that without all these other people.
Yes.
It is now 8:50. Jeff, do you want to wrap this up and then
Sure.
we can thank us all for being here?
Yes. And we will thank ourselves. Gratitude should extend to the current company. So in a prayerful mode, but being able to make eye contact was such a lovely thing when we often can't see each other face to face. It is so great to see all of you, by the way. I know why Jeffrey likes being with you on Sunday mornings. I just want to say I appreciate everything you have shared, your openness of heart, spirit, and of memory, and your reflective capacities, and the way in which church is when we are together in that intentional way. And so we have gone to church. We get to go to church twice today if you attend the worship at some later point. But may God enable each of us, even when we are heavy laden and we are laboring, to remain faithful even when belief and hope and gratitude feel far off, or when we have not yet re-elected to inhabit those spiritual energies. May we stay engaged, and even at least stay engaged with God, lifting our prayers of supplication, our pleas for help. And may, through the process of those struggles that
that's the end of that.
Prove us and challenge us, may we find that acceptance that Andrea spoke of. May we find perhaps that at some point that gratitude inhabits us, or we're able to elect to start to give thanks, even when we might have reason not to. And in the process, feel more connected, not only to our sacred self that seeks like light to move out to the world, to God, and a psalm-like reflection, powerful psalm about our experience and our connectedness. And so blessings to each of you, and thanks to each of you as well. And JS, thank you so much for hosting and for bringing our text up on screen. So thank you, and amen.
Cut me off.
Thank you.
Amen, and we'll see you all back here on August 2nd.